What's up, everybody? Well, on a podcast now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to rank the trials in Danganronpa 1. Now, for what my money's worth, and it's not worth much, but I've only seen this take place in a Reddit post, and that's it. I think 2 different Reddit posts have asked people to rank the trials. I did read those just to kind of get what other people were thinking, but to my knowledge, I don't think people do this that often, so I wanted to do something very, very different. Of course, I've done a retrospective on Danganronpa 1, and I've also done a character tier list / ranking. So I'm trying to cover every angle on, honestly, a masterpiece of a game, one of my favorite games of all time. So, okay, let's get into this. Trials. There's 6 of them in all, and we're going to rank them from, let's say, worst to best. Now, the thing you have to remember, and I want to make sure I make note of right away, is that I love, number one, I love the game, as I just said, but I love the trials. Are there trials that are maybe weaker than others? Well, yes, that's what this video is about. I don't know if there's any bad trial. I would probably make the argument that there isn't. There's some that are maybe more obvious, especially playing it twice, like you kind of remember, and which is what I did. So I did forget like an okay amount, but then I also, some of them are more predictable, or if you're just paying attention, you can kind of figure it out. So all those things, by the way, that's all going to be in this ranking. It's kind of how obvious it is, how fun the twists and turns that the trials do, if there's any character developments in these trials. Those are the things I really want to focus on. What I will not be counting is the deaths, the executions. Those, they're pretty darn fun, and some of them are definitely better than others, but that's post-trial, right? Trial gets us to the execution, so I'm not going to factor in the execution with the trial. I don't really think that would be fair. All right, let's get into this thing. So coming in at number 6, I'm actually going to put trial number 3, which of course is the dual murder, right? And this is one that I had fun with. I think upon playing it for the second time, I think the obvious factor is kind of what shines through. This is where, again, I think taking a look at the different elements of it is going to help us. So, like, number 1, Celeste, she's a good enough character. Again, we did the character tier list that I did in a video a little while ago. She's, like, mid. She's not amazing. She's not bad. She's kind of right there. Her motive is a bit weak. You think about right after her with Sakura, right? And the arc that beautiful trial takes us on, and we'll get there on the ranking. But, it's a kind of compare and contrast, right? Like, the motive here is just not very strong. It also involves some of the weaker characters if you kind of average them out, right? So it's got Celeste, it's got Hifumi, which to me, he's my least favorite, okay, in the entire game. He's the character I would say I borderline just don't even like, all right? So him being a big element of it is like, I think the number one thing that does stand out here is the complexity when the things are happening. I would say how dynamic it is in the moment is really cool. And that's my favorite part of this entire trial, that when things are happening, you got no effing clue what's going on, right? You're being called up and down these floors. Characters are moving around. You're opening doors and a new person is there, or a person's dead there when they weren't before. Like, it's chaotic and almost like, I don't necessarily think I put myself in this situation for all of these trials, but like if I was there, the way these characters are flipping out and being like, what is going on? I think some of them even say that, right? Like, what is happening right now? That's exactly how I felt. Like, in the moment, I was thinking, what are we doing here? Why are characters just dropping like flies? Why is there robo justice? What the heck is going on with that thing? So I would say, how dynamic it is when it's all happening is very cool. And I honestly would say there's nothing quite like it. Maybe Trial 5 with like Mukuro, just because you don't really know what's happening there. Makoto gets woken up at night, right? You don't know if it's a dream or not, and then you find the body, it blows up. Like, there are a little bit of, comparisons you can make there with, again, dynamic, like things are kind of happening on the fly. So that's my favorite part of this trial, and it might not actually be rivaled by anything else. It is really fun in that moment, but again, it revolves around some of the weaker characters. There's no character development here really whatsoever. Like Taka, he was actually on the up and up. Him and Mondo didn't have any time, right? Once they established the friendship, they didn't have any time for that. And then once he kind of unlocks his like Goku ultimate form, he's taken out. And then Hifumi is a huge part. And again, like he's just not a character I like very much at all. So, these are just characters that are not high up. I didn't really have a very strong, connection with them. And so when they're taken out, it's fun, yes, but it's not anything that's like emotionally moving. And then you kind of figure it out rather quickly, right? Because like Hero is the red herring. And once you kind of can get by that, then it's really just, okay, well, who was throwing him under the bus the entire time? And who was, by the way, dragging you from floor to floor to get you to look somewhere else? It was always Celeste. So this is also, I would say, it's one of the more predictable ones once you get past that it's not Robo Justice. And to be honest with you, could it have ever been? Like, that doesn't, I don't think that's going to fool you for too long, right? So all those elements, where are the twists and turns in this trial? All the twists that happen here really are when the murder is happening, which I do count. I am going to count that as part of this trial thing because I think that kind of plays a huge role. But the trial itself, is just kind of eliminating the red herring and then getting to, okay, who actually threw that person on the bus? It was Celeste. She's the one who did it. And it was really just, so what, you could have a vampire castle, which is visually very cool, very, very cool, but just not, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't the most in-depth character thing. And, it's because she's not the most in-depth character, and that's okay. But that's how it finds itself at number 6. Okay, number 5. This one is maybe a little controversial based off the Reddit post I was reading. I'm actually going to put trial number 2 here. And this is one that I would say there's probably a divide here between like average, maybe the last one we just talked about was like an average trial. This one's pretty good. Like this one is up in a category where you could, I think, move it around. It's just I have personal favorites of the rest of them. It's a solid trial. It's a trial actually that has a lot of moving parts. You don't really suspect Mondo until like later on. There's not that many signs. Even if you're paying attention, yeah, there might be a few, but there's not that many that steers you immediately to him. The game obviously is pushing you towards Genocide Jill. And at the time, actually, it's not even called Genocide Jill, right? But you have to go through that whole arc, and it has Toko go through a little bit as well. So I do like that. Like, really, it's actually going to be just me talking about things I like. This is Byakuya's show as well. This is a guy that dresses up the crime scene in a totally, unnecessary manner. He did not have to do that. In fact, I think everybody agrees he didn't have to do that. But he literally did it. I believe, didn't he say he saw Mondo leaving, like, immediately? So he knows it's him, right? So he would just be able to tell everybody, and I guess assume everybody's just going to believe him, which maybe that's true. And so in order to make the trial more fun, he literally has to F it up so that you're not even thinking about Mondo. And then if it got too bad by the end, he would just kind of tell you that he saw Mondo do it. So it's kind of wacky. It's kind of wacky, and there's a lot of misdirects. I would say, and Mondo, in terms of the reasoning, is quite good. His backstory, I would say his backstory is really, really good. Chihiro as well. Like, this is a character that has some depth in like what he's trying to hide. It's a sensitive topic. Like, to be honest with you, it really is. And I think people can relate, by the way, not necessarily to the outcome or like what happens to him, but at the same time, I will throw this in. Like, Chihiro is kind of also a mid character, and it's not because, I would say it's only because he didn't have enough time to kind of like breathe. I would actually say Alter Ego, which is kind of an extension of him, is actually maybe a better rounded character than he is. And that's only because Alter Ego kind of got to carry on the legacy, and actually I feel like almost got more scenes to him, right? So this is where, again, I would put it lower because of the characters. They're not the greatest characters of all time. It definitely is fun. It's definitely a fun trial, but I feel, once you figure out that she is not really a she, it's a he, right? Once you get past that, that is the big twist. That's a really big twist. Genocide Jill is kind of twist 2, and then you kind of get, focusing on Mondo, right? So it's definitely a good trial. I'm not going to sit here and try to make it not a good trial. It's just, this is where I have to start picking between my favorites, and it's just not my favorite. Okay, trial number 4 is my number 4, and this one was tough. This one, because I love this one. I said in my character rankings that, like, Sakura, I played this game, like I said, like 8 years ago, and I forgot a good amount. Like, I remember characters and like what they look like and whatnot, but I forgot really who I really, really liked and who I thought was more mid. And oh my dear God, she's phenomenal. What a fantastic character. And in terms of like, a lot of these trials can be character driven, but I don't know if there's one that's character driven more than this one. This is a selfless act. This is her doing this to herself to avoid fracturing the group. And like that's such a strong message to send. It really is. It's so beautiful. I think it really captures her character so well, because this is really the Sakura trial, is it not? You find out about the mole kind of right before it, and then like actually how it happens too. So you think about the actual death, like this is just a mistake after a mistake after a mistake, right? You have multiple characters trying to take this woman out because they think she's going to take them out, and that's like beautiful. And why that I think is important, of course, right? Because that comes into play in the trial. There's so many kind of mixed reactions or kind of, I guess, twists and turns that the game is trying to throw at you, because it actually is that way. See, I would say Trial 2, right? Byakuya, he literally makes it more convoluted just for fun, just because he feels like it. This one is twisted and wild, and you got multiple basically assassination attempts, but nobody actually can do it, right? And it's not like they're doing it purposely to confuse you, or to, like, you think about maybe Trial number 3, right? We just talked about, like, that one is supposed to be planned out in a way that you're looking one direction because it's actually another. This is one where it's just people made mistakes. People did stuff that they shouldn't have done. They convoluted the trial themselves. I don't even know if that's the right phrase, but they made the trial more convoluted accidentally, just naturally they did that. And I love that. And then just the arc of the trial, you find out so much more about this character that you already were starting to like, and you could already get so many signs that, like, she cares. She cares not just about Hina, and that's a great relationship those two have, but not just about her, but she cares about the group, and she wants us to win as characters, as the survivors here. And, she even does kind of the last-minute thing to get at Monokuma. So there's so much going on, and it reflects her character so strongly, and to me, she's one of the best characters in the game, like, easily. And this trial is so much just about her, and it does have great twists. You might be like, this is one I remembered immediately when she's sitting there and Hina calls you over and you look through the door. I remember, oh yeah, she took herself out. I did remember that. And that hurts it a little bit, because I do think there's supposed to be a lot of misdirects that, it's supposed to be other characters. They went to see her. And then Hina really takes it. She said, no, I'm the killer, and she really puts it on herself. Now, all of those are red herrings, right? And if you kind of know she does it to herself immediately, it does take away a little bit from the rest. But I think it's so well executed, and it's so character heavy that it's absolutely one of my favorites. The more I talk about it, I really should move it up, but I really do like the other three. So let's get into those next. So coming in at number 3, I'm going to say is Trial number 6. So this one, I will say, things I remembered versus things I forgot. I forgot that Trials 5 and 6 were kind of like part 1, part 2. Like Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, which is really how it feels, because Trial 5 ends very dark, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But Trial 6, okay, this is the grand finale. This is the good guys have to win. Although you don't know, Junko puts up a hell of a fight. And now here's what I'll say, right? Trial 6 is carried on the trial itself versus these other ones, well, okay, Trial 6 does have a lot of character moments, that's for sure. But in terms of the lead up to them, right? Some other trials can kind of be helped or hurt based off the lead up to them. Trial 6 is just, okay, we need to look back at this thing. They do have time, they look at everything. They get to investigate everything. And you do start to put things together. But I would say it's only until the trial starts and everybody's kind of throwing out what they think is happening. And then, Junko goes on a lot of exposition, right? And kind of fills you in. So that is, I think, why I would put it so high, is this is the good guys winning. I think, personally, a standout moment is when Junko starts to plant the seed of doubt in everybody's head, including Makoto, just for a second, and then he fights through it. It really is the ultimate fight of the ultimate despair versus the ultimate hope. That, I think, does carry it a bit. I mean, it's a lot of explanation of the entire thing. What is the tragedy? What was going on here? Who's the actual mastermind? Like, you get a lot of answers, and the depth maybe isn't as much there as maybe what we just said with, like, Sakura, but in terms of what happens, it's very impactful. And I really love, again, that ending where she throws a curveball, right? It's basically vote me or vote Makoto. If you vote Makoto, you can live here in harmony, like, I'm not going to bother you, and you're going to be safe. And that's only if you trust me that the outside world is like that, right? Versus if you take me out, well, you have to go outside and you have to roll that dice, right? You have to just kind of tempt that fate. And I love that because that makes everybody, including, by the way, Kyoko, who's an amazing character, who's always like on it, but it even makes her struggle it makes everybody struggle until Makoto is able to kind of save them using just his words, just his ability to kind of reason and give hope, which is what he's kind of done the entire time. So I love that element of it. I mean, it's got Junko's grand reveal, and it might not land to me as much as it did the first time, just because, you see it coming, it's going to be her. But the twist is big, that like Mukuro isn't actually, they swap bodies in the way that the game has done it, right? So you get all of that, and then you get Junko's like ability to express, her ability, or emote, I guess I would say, right? Her ability to just kind of be wild and give you all this exposition in the most fun way possible. So I really, those elements I think carry it. It's a little bit more static, because literally it's the same trial as 5. You're looking for the same things, but in terms of the feel and what you're revealing, right, it's different than what you did obviously in trial 5. Okay, number 2 I'm gonna say is trial number 1. This is one that I just really love. I feel like you almost have to give it to the OG, you know what I mean? This is the OG game, and you think like, okay, well, the first trial is the first trial ever, but it's also the first trial they've ever done. The final trial is the last trial they've ever done, right? So does it get bonus points? Perhaps it does. But the first trial, look, like you're going into this adventure. You may have seen trailers, you may have seen gameplay, but like you're in it for the first time. And things get pretty crazy right off the bat. Now, what I will say upon playing it the second time, it's more streamlined. It's more like on rails than I remembered it being the first trial, because you do have help. In trial 1, you're really having 2 characters in Byakuya and Kyoko that know what's going on, and they play it off differently. They play off helping you differently. But for the most part, specifically Kyoko is not going to let you go down with the ship. She's there almost as a tutorial guide in the game. But it's done so perfectly. Like, I would say if there's a game, any game, that has to do tutorials, which most games do that, right? How you put that into the game, can help or hurt the game. Sometimes it's just so basic of like, okay, we'll press this button and do this thing. But how you can like perfectly, I would say, sew it into the base game, that's what makes it so special. The first trial is an elaborate tutorial run of trial systems in this game. And it's done flawlessly because you still have the twists and turns. You have characters that are helping you, but they're kind of explaining the systems, right? They're saying, hey, you should know this, Makoto, right? Remember you looked at this thing? And I think it's just done so perfectly in that way. Plus, then you have that extra layer. It's the first time you're getting to know these characters and kind of their attacks on you. It's really, you have trial 1 and 5, and actually based off process of elimination, you know what my number 1 trial is. There's only a couple trials where you are the target, where you're kind of on the back foot having to defend yourself. And there's something about that I really like, if you can't tell. All the other trials, you're not on the back foot. You know you didn't do it, and everybody in the room has a really good sense you didn't do it. You really think about it. After trial 1, you have 2, 3, 4, right? And then you have 5. But 2, 3, 4, nobody believes it's you. And so when you're going through the trials in 2, 3, 4, it's always just about finding out everybody else. I like the twist of 1 and 5, and 1's the first time, where everybody's targeting you. It's so obvious that it's you. And 5 is way more complex, right? 5 is like, okay, well, it could be you, it couldn't be you, but you may have hit it just really, really well. In trial 1, people don't really know you. They think, oh, you're just a lucky student. Well, you could just be an idiot, right? Like you swapped rooms with her and you took her out. Like, how dumb could you be? So it's coming at it from an angle that these characters don't really know who Makoto is, and you have to protect yourself. You have to get it off of you first before you can start to blame anybody else, and it takes a little while to get it off of you, and also you have to kind of learn the systems. Also, Sayaka, I really love her as a character. Obviously not in it much, she's only in the beginning, but she's got a lot of depth, and she's a really, she's a nice girl with obviously a plot to do some bad things, but her dying message, the dying idea that she could have just let it go, and if she didn't write, technically she wrote Leon behind her, so that was a dead giveaway. But if she didn't do that, really it would go all eyes on you, and it'd be a lot harder to defend yourself. but in her dying last couple seconds, she gives the killer away, when in reality she was going to blame Makoto for it, right? So she does have, like, as a character, again, we talk about character trials, this is a trial, I would say, mainly of Sayaka and you as Makoto, and you really start to learn a little bit about them, a little bit about Leon. I mean, not the strongest character, but also a character that's given 5 minutes of screen time. He can't really be that strong of a character. And then it shows off the two smart Alex, right? The two that always, the two smart ones, but the two that handle it very differently, right? Like, one handles it as a very, almost a tyrant, like you have to listen to him and his way or the highway, insulting, versus Kyoko, she's much more grounded, and I love that about her. And so you kind of get that as well. So it's a trial that I think really emphasizes and focuses on some of the better characters in the game. And then you, of course, have the nice little twist where, well, it's the first trial, you have no idea what's going on, but you have to get it off of you first to focus on everybody else. And I like that so much. And of course, like I said, that leads us to number 1, trial number 5. I really like this. This is one that I think actually is a big divide. Those 2 Reddit posts that I read, I think the people that started the post put 5 rather high, and then the comments actually put 5 as one of the worst ones. I really like it. I mean, it's not too long of an explanation because I kind of just said part of it. Trial 5 is, again, it's either you or Kyoko. Like, that's it. And in reality, it's neither of you, but it has to be one of you two for that trial to kind of work, for what it is. And I just love the dynamic because, well, here's the thing, I guess, about the dynamic that I do love. There's only a couple characters left. You really, I think at that point, you care for everybody. Everybody's got something about them that you kind of can admire and respect. And you also want to have that belief that nobody would actually do it, right? Like, at that point, after, and really, you think of even Sakura, right? Like, when she does that, that is almost the ultimate hope. That is, stop taking each other out. You have a fighting chance. I'm going to help you. You're going to figure out the mystery. Just don't turn on each other. And that's another, I think, beautiful kind of lesson learned from that one. So after that trial, you're really in a place where there's no way you would turn on each other. These characters that are left are just not going to do it. Now, I would say Genocide Jill is a serial killer and should never be, like, completely forgotten about that she did that stuff. But generally, these characters are thick as thieves, and they're not going to turn. So then, okay, but then somebody did, right? Somebody did turn. And I love that element. And the element, again, like, it's so much on Makoto. Like, he looks very guilty. And he looks guilty purposely. Like, it's so obviously either him or Kyoko. And there's really no getting out of it because the true killer is neither of them, right? This is, of course, also, if you call Kyoko on her lie, you get a bad ending. Like, the game can literally, it can end here, but you can continue it after it, so it's not like truly the game will end, but you get a bad ending. The game can stop. Or then you get executed as Makoto, and that is a tense sequence, especially first time playing it. You got no clue what's going to happen. And then, of course, alter ego, there's Chihiro kind of coming in clutch, saving you. So there is a lot of, I just think it's a beautiful trial. I think it's confusing. You got no idea what's going on with, like, his fever dream, and then you find the body and it blows up. So now, okay, you don't even know who it is. Most of this, by the way, the investigation part, you don't even know if it is that 16th student or if it's Kyoko, right? And they do, I think, a very good enough job of making you believe it could be Kyoko right up until the end, until she shows up, ready for the trial. So I think the kind of pre-planning phase is very good, very kind of tense and confusing. And then when you get into the trial, there's a couple back and forths of, like, well, it can't be Makoto. And then when you get to the trial, you're on the back foot. You defend, if you remember that trial, you defend yourself, and people are like, okay, it can't be you because of the time of death, right? But then Kyoko kind of puts it back on you. And I guess that's another element that I don't want to discount as well. She's always your helper. She's always there kind of to have your back. I mean, I don't know if that's how she looks at it, but she's always, generally in agreement with you. This one is literally a battle between you and her. Like, you're calling her out, she's calling you out, and you've never had that dynamic with her before. Especially, by the way, if you hang out with her a lot, like, you do feel like you're getting closer, and then she pulls this act, right? And it's like, it's so confusing that a character like that would do something. So I really like that back and forth. It is a confusing trial. It technically doesn't have an ending to it. Trial 6 is the ending to Trial 5. So I just like how different it is. I guess that's how it's I would say it's probably the most different trial in the entire game. A game, by the way, full of different types of trials. So let me know what your ranking is in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.